Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Moving Markets. My name is Jeffry Dunyon. We'll talk about what's moving the stock market today, maybe throw in a little bit of sports and politics. I'm going to throw in sports today. You see, I'm representing. I'm wearing all my Dodger attire today. It's spring training. It's in full swing. Dodgers beat the Giants yesterday in spring training. I got to tell you, anytime the Dodgers beat the Giants in anything, that's a good day for me. I love my friends in San Francisco in the Bay Area and San Francisco fans. I like you as individuals. I just don't like the sports team that you cheer for, and I don't like the Giants. So if the Dodgers are going to win, I see that as nothing but a good thing, and I absolutely love it. So anyways, right now, it is a little after 10 o'clock. I actually guess closer to 11 o'clock Mountain time. So we're approaching 1 o'clock on the East Coast. That means obviously the market's been open for a little bit more than half of the scheduled day. We're down to about that last 3 hours maybe that the market is going to be open, and a little over 3 hours. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has been down as much as 90 points today. It has been up as high as 45, 46 points, I think, at one point in time. Right now, dead flat. I show the Dow up 80 cents, and it's literally going back and forth from positive. When I look over like this to my left, I'm looking at my screen over here that has my streaming stock quotes on it. So markets are dead flat. NASDAQ is up 0.04%. Dow Jones is up 20 cents, down 20 cents, up 5 cents, down 25 cents, down $1.80 now. Pretty darn flat, not even enough to register 1/100%. And the S&P is down about 0.08%, so not even 0.1% on the S&P. Very, very flat day so far, but with a little bit of moving around. Yesterday, absolutely crazy. First time in a long time we've had more than a 500-point swing from the high to the low since going back to that week during the Christmas break. And it was funny yesterday, even after the markets had closed. I heard people trying to explain why the markets did what they did yesterday. And the reality is, for every individual that was trying to explain it, there was a different reason for it, which is all the evidence you need to tell you that nobody knows why the markets did what they did yesterday. Nobody knows. The thing that I agree with probably the most is a little bit of Chinese trade talk fatigue. It seems like every morning we wake up, we're getting some kind of an update on what the latest is with the China trade talk. Are we closer to a deal? Are we farther away from a deal? Is the deal going to address the critical issues like the intellectual property theft, or is it going to not cover that adequately? What's going to happen that allows us to verify whatever the Chinese say they're going to do? And I think this is plausible in terms of what happened yesterday in the markets. People getting tired of that. We've had this incredible bullish run in the market, and people are kind of ready for some profit taking, ready for a pause. The fact that the Dow was down over 400 points yesterday and only finished down 200 points, I actually see that as quite a positive thing. Not that I wanted the Dow to finish down the 200 plus points that it finished down, but the fact that it came back and pared more than half of its losses on the day, I think is quite a positive thing. Today, there is an absolute absence of news or anything new on China, and I think that's why the markets are dead flat. There's not a reason to buy. There's not a reason to sell. I think people are kind of taking a pause from yesterday. If we finish anywhere at all in positive territory today, I think that's going to be a really good thing. I think that'll be something impressive. There's what's moving the markets. A couple of the bigger market related headlines. It's found itself off of the front page. Because, on any website you're looking at, or at least most websites you're looking at, when you're looking at the news headlines, you're looking at what is trending now. We make that joke of what's trending now. And the story that was trending an hour ago may not even make the top 5 or 10 stories that are trending right now. Earlier in the day, when the news broke, I believe it was new home sales came in at a much higher number than what was expected. I think the number came in at 5.7% increase in new home sales for December, and analysts were expecting a 2% or more decrease. So it was a 7% better than what analysts were expecting. And just like we were talking about with construction spending for December, once again, the analysts are wrong. I mean, that's, I probably say it too many times, but if analysts are telling you one thing, assume something different is going to happen because they never get it right. I don't know why. I don't know why that's a profession or a career. I tell people when they, every now and then I'll get kids that are in high school. I've got high school age kids and kids that are early in college and still to some degree trying to figure out what they're going to do in college. At least they're going, and I love that. But so I talk to their friends once in a while. I talk to kids that age once in a while. And when they ask me, what would you do for a living or what would you do different? I was like, go to school and get a degree to be a market analyst. You never have to be right. You can be wrong 100% of the time and make great money being a market analyst. That's the dream job. Every other job in the world, you have to perform. You have to do things that are right, and you've got to be right more often than you're wrong. You be a market analyst, you can be wrong 100% of the time and still get well paid for being a market analyst. They're never right on what they think is going to happen, whether it's predicting what a stock, an individual company is going to do on their earnings with their revenue, their profit per share, their guidance, whatever. They're wrong all the time, and they still get paid a lot of money. That's the job that I have to be right all the time. Thank heavens I am right all the time, because this is an opinion piece. This entire moving markets is my opinion of why the markets are moving. And since it's my opinion, it's right 100% of the time. And you can deal with that, or you can go watch somebody else's presentation. I don't care. Yeah, I mean, the new home sales are on the rise there. I saw one article, and I can't even find it in the top trending things right now that are online. But one of the stories had to do with housing is set to make a big rebound. New home sales were up, and home prices, are ready to make a big rebound as well. And both those things bode well for the market. A couple of other things. There was another article that was in the news, and I thought this one was interesting. This is the headline for this article. It's written by someone named Yoon Lee, and I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know who this person is, and so I'm not saying good or bad things about them. But Yoon Lee wrote an article, and the article starts out that the stock market and the economy are telling two different stories. And the person writing the article goes on to talk about if you look at what's happening in the market and the huge rebound it's made since the middle of December, and you compare that with what is actually going on in the economy, it tells two different tales. And the gist of it, just summarizing the article a little bit, is that earnings have been down. Earnings per share have been down. Revenue has been down on a lot of companies. I mean, we just finished we just finished about mid-February. So just a couple of weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, we finished the earnings season that basically wraps up fourth quarter of 2018, where companies, most of your Fortune 500 companies report on how they did on those numbers. And then of course they give their guidance for the next quarter and the next year in some cases. And there was a little bit of a trend. Now I'm going to push back a little bit towards Yoon Lee. This person contends that revenues were down, earnings per share was down, and yet the market continues to go up, and some of these stocks continue to go up. Well, I'm going to push back, because what changed was that revenues were still growing. Revenues were growing by large percentages. They just weren't growing as fast. And it's so critical. I think if you're going to trade money, if you're going to be involved in the market, you've got to recognize, and this is what I think the author of this article kind of fails to recognize, or at least give any credence to, is that you've got to point out the difference between revenues being down over the percentage growth from the year before versus revenues actually being down. There were very few Fortune 500 companies that saw their revenue decrease. What decreased was the rate of growth. So same quarter last year, they grew at 23%. And this quarter they grew at 18%. Okay, that means they're still up 18% more than they were the last year. And that last year was even a bigger number. All it means is that the speed of which they're growing has slowed down a little bit. It's like if you're, okay, I'm wearing my baseball stuff today, right? I'm in full Dodgers regalia here today. If you're a baseball team that has won 10 games in a row and you're winning by an average of 5 runs per game, and then you win 5 more games in a row, but you're having to get a home run in the bottom of the ninth, or you're bringing in your closer to save a game that's only 1 or 2 runs separating you and the team that's losing, you still won 5 more games in a row. And so now you've got a 15-game win streak instead of a 10-game win streak, and someone's going to get hyper focused on, yeah, but you're not winning with as big a margin of victory as you used to be winning. And I would say, so what? You're still winning games, and there's no signs to show that you're not going to still win games. In fact, maybe you're having to gut it out a little bit more, and that's a good thing. So I always find it fascinating when I read articles like this, because just like I'm entitled to my opinion, and I have my opinion about why the markets are doing what they're doing, and what you should lend credence to and what you shouldn't. Same with this author. It's their opinion, but a lot of times this stuff gets put online, and the assumption becomes, if it's online, it must be true. It's reported as news. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to get off a little bit on the political stuff, although this is news in general. It is such a rare thing anymore that actual news is news. What gets put out as news is 99% opinion news. I'm 50. I'm approaching 51 years old. I remember back in the days when you would turn on the news. This makes me sound really old when I start a phrase that way. I remember back in the day. Anytime you start a phrase with "back in the days," that tells you you're getting older. But I do remember the time when you would turn on the news, and it didn't matter which news station you were watching. You're watching ABC, you're watching NBC, CBS, and even in the early days of CNN, which I think goes back to like the late, I could be wrong on this. I think CNN goes back to the late 70s when they started, and people didn't think an all news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week channel would ever get legs and go anywhere. And CNN is wildly successful now. But I remember back in those days, you would turn on the news, and you would watch 3 or 4 different news stations if you had the ability to do that. And what you would get is the facts. You would get information about what was going on. You wouldn't get someone's political slant or someone's political bias about it. You would get the facts that were being reported. And every now and then you would recognize that someone had a strong opinion about something, or the way they presented the facts. You could tell that they might present the facts with a little bit of disdain about what they were presenting, or they got a little too excited about what they were presenting, because those facts lined up with what their political opinions were, with, sometimes not even political opinion, just their opinion in general about things. Nowadays, you get almost exactly the opposite. You turn on any one of the major networks, and what you're going to get as you listen to these talking heads is they're going to give you their opinion on what you should think of the information they're giving you. It's so slanted to their political ideology. They don't even try to present facts anymore. And it's easy to see it in politics. When you're talking about politics, you've got the anti-Trump people that absolutely hate him. I mean, let's be honest. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. I don't know if I said CBS twice. The news anchors on that channel, the management at those companies, they absolutely despise and hate Donald Trump with a passion, and they cannot accurately and fairly report the news. And what the only thing that bothers me about that is they act as though they're reporting the news. They're opinion shows. It's no longer news. It's opinion shows all day long on those channels when you watch them. You've got Fox News that's on the other side of the coin. The vast majority. Now, I'm going to give Fox News a little bit, not just because I'm a conservative in my own values, but I'm going to give Fox News a little bit of credit, because Fox News will put liberals on their news station, and Fox News doesn't try and hide the difference between their programs that are opinion programs and their programs that are news programs. If you turn on Shepard Smith during the middle of the day, you're not getting an opinion program. Shepard Smith, I think, is more liberal in his views, generally speaking, a little bit more liberal than he is conservative. But Shepard Smith will report the facts about what's going on. You turn on Brett Baer Brett Baer in the early evening time slot, he's going early evening for my time. It's probably mid evening prime time for those people out on the East Coast. But he's reporting facts, and you would be hard pressed in a lot of his coverage to know whether his views are really conservative or really liberal. But Fox News has tons of conservative opinions. I'm not suggesting that they're by any stretch this middle of the road across everything. But what they don't jack around with, what they don't try and jack you around with, is pretending that an opinion show is anything other than opinion show. You turn on Sean Hannity, you turn on Tucker Carlson, you turn on the 5 at 5 Eastern. It's one of my favorite programs. I love even the token liberal that they have on that panel of 5, who 99% of the time says the most idiotic, stupid things you can possibly imagine could come out of a human being's mouth. I don't hate them as people. Listen, Juan Williams, if you're listening to me, I disagree with 99% of what you're saying. I joke around with my kids. I say, you know how you can tell if I'm going to disagree with Juan Williams is if Juan Williams' lips are moving. But I like him. He's a good guy. I like him. There's nothing other than we would disagree vehemently about our political opinions. There's nothing about the guy that seems unlikable. But they make they don't try and hide the fact that they are an opinion show. And again, I at least respect Fox News in the sense that they'll put liberal commentators on there. I watch Stuart Varney every morning. I love Stuart Varney. Stuart, this is a shameless plug that if you ever come across my YouTube live station, if you ever come across my podcast, I am making a blatant, shameless plug that you put me on your show for some reason. I love Stuart Varney. The guy, anyway, sorry, man crush maybe. I don't know. Stuart's, I don't, scratch that. Man crush is kind of weird. But anyway, I love the fact also that Stuart Varney will bring liberal people onto his show as guests. And he'll disagree with them if he wants to disagree with them, or he'll concede that they have a good point on something, even though most of their opinions are not worth the same weight in horse manure. But that's my really super polite way of saying that. But you get to MSNBC, you get to CNN, you get to NBC, CBS, ABC. Number one, they rarely bring someone on who has any kind of conservative leanings. And if they do, they gang up on them as much or worse than the Fox people will gang up on the liberals. But it's sad to me that there are few places you can go for just straight up factual news. Everything is opinion based. And one of the sad things, one of the sad commentaries in this country right now is how polarized the country is. Yesterday on one of the programs I was listening to, I bet you can guess which one. On one of the programs I was listening to, there was some recent poll that was done about what are people most concerned about in the world of politics right now. It was a political poll, and what are you most concerned about? And believe it or not, the answer was not Russia collusion. The answer was not the economy. The answer was not healthcare. The answer was not government spending. These things that you think would be the number one thing that might drive people to the polls to cast a vote. What people said they were most concerned about was how polarized the country is right now. It's sad to me that we cannot disagree politically any longer without hating each other. That's got to change. I mean, that's really got to change. There are people that I will rip on them, and I will tell you that they're stupid, and I will tell you that their opinions are idiotic. And the reality is, if they were a Dodger fan, I could sit down and enjoy a game with them no matter what their politics are. If they wanted to go out and eat somewhere at a restaurant and not talk about politics, chances are we'd get along really, really well. We've got to be able to have these different political opinions. We've got to be able to have these different opinions and find a way to still communicate about them. I'm getting all preachy. This is what's moving the markets, and here I am getting all preachy. But this is what's been on my mind over the last little while. All right, so 20 minutes into our presentation, now the Dow's up 27, NASDAQ up 7, S&P up 15. Nothing's moving the markets today. Whether we finish to the upside or the downside, as of right now, middle of the day, smack dab middle of my day, nothing is moving the markets. There are an equal number of buyers, sellers. There's day traders that are pushing things around. There is no big major news that is really pushing things one direction or the other. Uh, and that's okay. I don't mind days like this. Every now and then a day where you can take a little bit of a breather and not worry about a huge sell off, and for that matter, not worry about a gigantic move to the upside. That's not a bad thing. One last thing to note, because a lot of my students at Safe Option Strategies trade American Outdoor Brands Corporation. There was a report that came out yesterday about gun sales being down. I know for some people, for you libs out there, that's thrilling news to you. I don't care one way or the other, whether gun sales are up and down. Just don't mess with our Second Amendment rights and take away our rights to own guns or buy guns if we want to. But just a couple of days ahead of their reported earnings, American Outdoor Brands Corporation, and on our Thursday presentation, we're going to talk a lot more about, maybe on our Friday presentation, when the market has had a chance to react to whatever news comes from American Outdoor Brands Corporation. For those of you that don't know, they're the parent organization for Smith & Wesson guns. But they took a big hit yesterday, percentage-wise. They're down again today, all on news that gun sales were down. It's not out of the question that Smith & Wesson could still come in with good numbers. The gun sales were down overall, but they might come in and say, hey, ours didn't do too bad. And the reason we changed our name to American Outdoor Brands Corporation is because we have all these other brands now on top of just the guns that we sell. We have a lot of other hunting and fishing and camping and survival type supplies. And so they might come in and say that all that other stuff, all of our other lines more than made up for some down gun sales. Although I think the average investor that has money in Smith & Wesson or American Outdoor Brands is going to be focused primarily on where were their gun sales, what are they expecting next quarter and for the rest of the year. It'll be interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of days, but I'm going to wrap it up right there. Go Dodgers, go Dodger Blue. My friends in Southern California, LA, that are Dodgers fans, my friends all over the world that are Dodgers fans, having a good spring training so far. I think Dodgers have only lost one spring training, and spring training doesn't really matter, but things are looking good, other than got to get a healthy Clayton Kershaw, and he's already being hampered with some injuries in the early spring training games. So hopefully that'll go away soon. He'll get right and be hopefully put in for the game one starter on opening day. So anyways, if you're not a baseball fan, the last 30 seconds to a minute is absolutely meaningless to you. My recommendation to you is become a baseball fan. It's the greatest sport out there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.